Got it. Okay. I'd like to welcome, first of all, the members of Yibineh, the listeners of Yibineh. We are doing the Kavanah Mitzvos Foundation, KLM Shir, here live in Har Nof. And before we get started, there's a very special sponsorship that the entire series is being sponsored, and that's for the Ilya Nishmas, the Lias Neshama of Yoni Ashburn, who is the son of Dan and Rebecca Ashburn. His name for the Elias Neshama is Yonasan Simchat ben Daniel. And I just want to tell you that I'm very, I feel very thankful that they agreed to be the sponsors, because unfortunately this incredible neshama passed from the world on Rosh Hashanah of last year. I didn't have the merit to know him, but I spent the Shiva with Mr. Ashburn, and it was a life-changing experience for me to hear about him and their relationship, and I had a different Yom Kippur as a result. So I feel that it's just so fitting and so wonderful that they're sponsoring this year. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Last year, right before Rosh Hashanah, I was giving a shir on preparing for Rosh Hashanah, and I was talking about, and by the way, just to give you some context, it was the beginning of the second year of KLM. And it's working? Okay. It was the beginning of the second year of KLM, right before Rosh Hashanah, and my message to the group was, if you want a good judgment, you have to be humble. You have to feel very humble and not just count that you're going to get a good judgment. So one of the participants, he's been a participant in the kavanah mitzvos shirim for a while, so he admitted something. He says, Rabbi Wegbreit, I have to be honest. I'm finding it hard to be humble before Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because he'd worked a year on applying the concepts of KLM, and therefore he said, look, if I compare my Rosh Hashanah of last year to my Rosh Hashanah of this year, I really think I'm worthy of a good judgment, right? Because he saw that you can do some very simple, easy upgrades. So if we are successful, and of course we know we need Hashem for this, but if we're successful this year, I hope everyone here and everyone listening has a problem working on humility before Rosh Hashanah. I hope that will be what we have to work on, okay? So please God, that's the what we're aiming for, is that we've really enhanced our relationship with Hashem and our merits, etc., and for everybody. Okay, so that's what the aim is. All right. Now, I think I want to tell you a little bit my story with what I'm doing right now. I used to be at a yeshiva in the Old City. Many people have heard of Birkas Satorah for 20 years. I was mashgiach there for 10 years. And at the time, I would describe I had a life-changing experience actually there. And to tell you the truth, my life was really going good, thank God, at the time, yet it still changed. Now, let me explain. You know, at the time, I was learning Gemara, I was teaching Gemara, and I loved Gemara. I was learning Musar, I was teaching Musar, I loved Musar. I also, thank God, I've written a few books. So I was like turned on. However, if I have to be honest, you know, I found myself, try as I may, I was throwing blessings out of my mouth. And if you ask me, out of the 100 blessings a day, how many were good ones? Well, let's move on to another subject, okay? Also, you know, I would dutifully do the mitzvahs like reading the Shnayim Mikra and Shabbos. Okay, I tried, but it was kind of a routine. And I realized something's a little bit wrong with my mitzvahs. I love Torah, and this is what I'm sharing with you. I think the feeling an engagement and enjoyment of Torah is quite easy and natural, and you can continue to do it time and time again. But, the mitzvahs, you're doing them every day. So I realized I was in what I'll call the rut of Rote. Okay? That was what was happening with my mitzvahs. And I think that the reason I ended up opening this foundation is because I found out I'm not alone, not even slightly. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why this is very important to work on. Okay, but before I do, I just want to point out also why it is so wonderful to work on this now in Elul. Okay, because Elul faces a similar situation. I think that we all go through is Elul's here. You want to it's time to step it up, to upgrade your mitzvahs and your connection with Hashem. In fact, that's why people come out to shirim and things like this, right? You're turned on, but then oftentimes, like after a week or so, it loses its magic in a certain sense, and sometimes we can find ourselves back in the same rut of Rote, right? So this is why I really, really want us to make major inroads on this time, and we're really going to see that this is the challenge we have our whole life. In fact, let me just put this up. Yes. Let me do the road thing for the screen so they can see the camera.
Yeah.
Will they be able to see anything?
I think so.
Okay, great. So I just want to show you that this is what I would say the common experience that we often have. Let's say we're starting here. And if you were to describe your experience and connection with Torah mitzvahs, ups, downs, good, but you have the inspiration. But then what can happen is this. There's a descent, right, with mitzvahs because they happen time and time again. And we could, in a certain sense, we can be finding ourselves running through the siddur, like I said, throwing blessings out our mouth. So the repetition leads to a descent, okay? And then it could even go down to here. Now, what do I describe as that? We have more joy, let's say, connecting to the internet and other things in our lives. We look for other types of pleasure. And most importantly, if we're not an emblem of inspiration when we're doing mitzvahs, what kind of impression do the kids get, right? So this is what can happen if Rote takes over, okay? Now I'm going to share with you that I made a discovery, which is this KLM, and that really moved things into an upward descent. Then by practicing it, it really moved high. And then I'm going to try to explain there's a very lofty goal we can achieve, and that is Dveikus with Hashem. Okay, so this is, if you will, a model of the process. Okay, now, so we're going to work on Rote, that's number one. But the other thing I want to work on is two more things, okay? When we advertise this shir, and whenever I advertise a class, I'm always worried that the Yetzer Hara is going to attend, that he might be one of the participants in the shir, right? And so the thing is this: we have to realize that we have a major foe, as the Messias Yisharim describes. The Yetzer Hara is quite an opponent, and here's I want to mention, besides the rut of Rote, there's two other main places that he goes after us. And by the way, this is not my idea. This is from Rabbi Victor Miller, okay? He wrote a book on Olam Haba, or they put together. That's part of it. But ready? Number one is, besides the mitzvahs sometimes just getting repetitious and hard to connect to, what about being aware of Hashem's presence? That is in a major agenda of the Yetzer Hara. You could be learning Torah, or you could be on Shabbos. If you were on Shabbos, there could be beautiful singing, there could be divrei Torah. But if you ask someone to count the participants at the table, they might leave out that Hashem is present there, right? This is a major front that the Yetzer Hara is realizing we're in Hashem's presence. So that's something else we're going to work on. Thank God we found very effective ways to work on that, okay? So, and then the third thing, and interestingly enough, the Chovos HaLevavos says that the number one place the Yetzer Hara goes after us is, now you might think it is on the existence of Hashem, right? He says, no, that's not the main place. The Yetzer Hara's main attack is getting us not to think about the world to come, Olam Haba. And he says that and our being there, etc. He's saying that's a main front. And the truth of the matter is, again, observes Rabbi Miller, how often are we thinking about Olam Haba? How often, even on Shabbos is main Olam Haba, right? So these are the three things we're going to work on is the Rote of Rote in terms of mitzvahs. Number two, attaining a sense, an awareness of Hashem's presence, and thirdly, being Olam Haba conscious. Okay, that's the game plan. All right, so you hear what the problems are, and this is what we're going to try to tackle. Okay, so let me tell you, I told you that my life changed 6 years ago. So what did I discover? And I'm just reviewing that I was connecting to learning. I loved learning. I loved the whole thing. But with mitzvahs, there seemed to be some sort of block on some level, right? So I found a sefer, and it just talked about, and leave it to Hashem. Hashem, of course, knows that we're going to face this conflict. After all, you're repeating the same thing time and time again. That's challenging. So Hashem says, I have a mitzvah that if you work on it, it's going to really help in this area. And what mitzvah is that? It's the mitzvah to have kavanah for mitzvahs. This has helped my life change from just this discovery, which is a halacha, okay? But now let me explain it. When we hear the word kavanah, most people think of kavanah in tefillah, right? Now, that's different than the kavanah I'm talking about here, okay? Kavanah, the famous kavanah, I don't know if I had the greatest kavanah today in davening. That kavanah would translate as focus, right? Focus and engagement in what you're involved with in the tefillah. Okay, you're present with the words and focused. Kavanah lemitzvahs. The word kavanah means something else. It means having conscious intention before you perform the mitzvah. You hear this? Kavanah for prayer is focus and concentration. Kavanah for mitzvahs is conscious intention, and it's a game changer. You should know they're both important, but the truth of the matter is, says the Mishnah Berurah, not that you should do one or the other, but more important is kavanah for mitzvahs. Why? Because in terms of the halacha, there's only two places where you must have kavanah for prayer, focus, concentration, to fulfill the mitzvah. The first line of the Kriya Shema and the first blessing of the Shemona Esrei. After that, if you do not have focus and concentration, it's unfortunate, but you're fine, you did the mitzvah, okay? The disruptive information is, when it comes to mitzvahs, every mitzvah requires this intention beforehand, conscious intention before you do it. It's a halacha for the Ashkenazim, the Sephardim, men, women. It's a halacha. Now, again, I'm just giving you a little of the halakhic background, then we're going to see how this can provide such an upgrade in spiritual lift. The thing is this, don't get too alarmed, okay? Like right now, we're doing a mitzvah, correct? Including the people listening, doing a mitzvah. What are we doing? Learning Torah, right. So now, everybody here has implicit intention to learn Torah right now, okay? Implicit, okay? And also, let's say you're making a blessing on Shabbos candles, right? For sure, even if you didn't have in mind the mitzvah of making a blessing on Shabbos candles, you have implicit. What else are you doing? This idea that implicit intention works comes from the High Adam, but it's not the same as having explicit intention, okay? All right, so let's just do this right now, okay? You two listening, we're going to go move. The other thing that I'm trying to do here is not give you a bunch of information and teach you Torah. I love teaching Torah. You guys love Torah. But we want to go from information to a cognitive experience. That's what we're trying to achieve here, okay? And we can do it instantly and easily, okay? So everyone acknowledge we are learning Torah right now, okay? So I want everybody, there's two ways to express, and by the way, the good news, you don't even have to say it out loud. If you say it out loud, it affects the spirituality of it. But it's enough to just think this in your mind, okay? And it takes a second or two. There's two ways to do it. The simple way is to just think, and we'll do both ways, just think, I'm doing this to fulfill a mitzvah. That's all. The Shem mitzvah in Hebrew, okay? For the sake of a mitzvah. We are sitting here and you're listening there, the Shem mitzvah, okay? That's one way. The more ideal way, the more ideal way is to say, I have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah of learning Torah, kasher tziva Hashem, as Hashem has commanded me. Okay, so to identify the mitzvah and to acknowledge I'm doing this because Hashem commanded me. Okay, that's how you do it. But now, what's the difference between when you first came here and you sat here, those of you who don't know about this halacha, which is many, many people I've discovered, it was including myself 6 years ago. But anyhow, what's the difference between the first, let's say 15 minutes, where you sat here having implicit intention, and now where you have explicit? What's the difference?
It's elevated the mitzvah, you get more star.
Yes, and I want to tell you how correct you are. She said, you've elevated the mitzvah and you get more reward. Listen to this. I would like to tell you, I'll be honest with you, I'm not very good at math, okay? But even if I had the top computer, okay, I can't tell you the difference. Says the Ron. The Ron says like this, take two people. One person does the mitzvah without what he calls complete kavanah, and the other does. He says, the difference in their reward cannot be calculated. Cannot be calculated, right? Okay, so that's that, and we're talking about olam haba, and also we're talking about your relationship with Hashem, right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal to do this, and let me explain why it's a big deal with your relationship with Hashem. If I were to ask you, let's take the mitzvah of learning Torah again. That's what we're doing right now. So when were you commanded to learn Torah? Right. So from the Torah at Sinai, right? So to say that you were commanded to learn Torah at Sinai is only partially correct. Now let's say you became religious, right? And you accepted the Torah, and then you learn about the mitzvah Torah, right? So you'll say, when I learned about it. Again, you're only partially correct. When were you commanded to learn Torah? Right now, today. It says in Kriya Shema and in other places, Hayom, right? The mitzvahs I'm commanding you today, meaning Hashem wants us to be responsive to Him in the moment. You hear that? So the beautiful thing about this, besides the reward, but look at your relationship with Hashem. It's not old, it's present. Okay? See, the thing is this, many people, when they hear what I'm training people to be conscious of missions, they compare it to mindfulness, right? And, and mindfulness, of course, we know has the advantage of being present. You're present in the moment, right? But, we are so lucky to be Jews because we're not just present in the moment, we're present in the presence of Hashem. You hear? So when you stop and say, what am I doing, right? And you say, because Hashem commanded me this moment. You hear? So that's what that's the overview of the importance of doing this, okay? And it's all about, and by the way, the Ramchal was into mindfulness a very long time ago, because you know what he says? He says that if you want to achieve a purity of divine service, of avodas Hashem, right? Now, don't we want to in El? Of course, right? So he says you have to ask yourself two questions before you do anything. What am I about to do? What is the mitzvah I'm about to do? And before whom am I about to do it? In other words, you bring Hashem's presence in, okay? Okay? So anyhow, you now have the theory. And I want to get a little bit into practice. First of all, let's just start, let me just draw your attention to the opportunities. Now, first of all, I said to you that halakhically, if you have implicit intention, you don't have to repeat the mitzvah. It accomplishes something. It's a mitzvah. But we just said the difference of adding the explicit conscious intention is incalculable. Good? But now, the other thing I want to point out is there's some places where implicit intention doesn't work. For example, let's say you have a serviceman over at your house, or you take a cab. This is a famous, brought in the Sefer Mitzvahs by the Hafetz Chaim, right? So when you pay the cab, right, or you pay the serviceman, so you have to, you could go to jail if you don't, right? And you're just, it's beneath your dignity not to pay for a service. So guess what? There, even though the Torah says you have a mitzvah to pay a worker within 12 hours, but if you don't have explicit intention, no mitzvah. So it's the difference between you abided with the laws of society, or you created an internal connection with Hashem. Do you know the same thing applies for having a glass of water or exercising? Because taking care of your health, according to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, based on the Rambam, is a mitzvah of nishmarten. Okay, but you could be taking care of your health because you want to have good health, right? So, but if you just add this moment's thought, so I call it spiritual alchemy that works. Okay, you go from this act that's going to stay here and be here, and that's it, to eternity. Okay, so it's really, really big. Okay, so there are places where you have to learn what it is. Okay, and we're going to do some demonstrations, but I want to just have people. I'm just going to give a little list of examples where it's good to get started. And I must stress, if this information is new, guess who realizes you just learned this information? Hashem. And does he realize that it may take some time to practice this and be successful? So don't be alarmed. Don't head for the hills. We just have to go about it in a step-by-step manner. But I just want to give you an overview, okay? So first of all, you have mitzvahs between man and Hashem. So you could start with Torah commandments like benching, reciting the Kriya Shema. You know, by tefillah, the Rambam says once a day to pray is a Torah commandment. That's another place where if you add explicit intention, it goes through the roof, okay? This is very important. You know, people are saying Tehillim all the time, right? Whenever you are praying about troubles, even for an individual, but even more so of Klal Yisrael, it's a Torah commandment to cry out to Hashem in times of trouble. Okay, so I'm just giving you an overview. Then here's another area where it's not obvious that you're doing a mitzvah. Let's say you pass by a friend and you say, "Oh, good morning," right? Boker Tov, right? So, that a mitzvah?
Yeah.
It is. It's afterecha kamocha. It's a mitzvah of kindness because it makes people feel good. But you could be doing it because of social convention, okay? But I must tell you, when it comes to mitzvahs between man and people, they get a benefit. So some say that it for sure equals implicit intention, okay? So even if you didn't have kavanah, you gave a human creature of Hashem benefit, then there's still an accomplishment. Okay, that's the overview. And now, since this is a series, and I'm also speaking to the people who are listening, I'm going to give you, if you'll accept it, a homework assignment, okay? I'm going to give you a homework assignment, and then we're also going to do a special ceremony and apply this for the Ilyan Nishmas. So my homework assignment is this. By the way, if you want like information or recording or just instructions, you have questions for me, I can be reached at Rabbi Wegbreit @gmail.com. You see it on the posters, etc. My name is not the easiest to spell, but you'll see it. Okay, so anyhow, my assignment is to pick. You really just have to know yourself on some level, but to pick, let's say, one mitzvah and try to train yourself to have kavanah for it. Let's say it's Kriya Shema or prayer. You can make a mark in your siddur, kavanah for the mitzvah, right? Or whatever it is. You'll have to be creative to remind yourself. See, the thing is this. I heard a great model about implementation. See, by the way, this is the time to push ourselves and implement. So I heard this model. It says like this. If you don't make a strong commitment, it's not going to happen. Now, if you make a strong commitment, but you don't set a time, it still may not happen. Now, you make a strong commitment and you set a time, but you don't set a reminder. But you do an alarm, you hear? Set an alarm, you hear? Because you could have a time, you're committed, you have a time, but you could forget. It happens. We're going a different current right now. We're becoming conscious, right? We're wedging into the current of our lives and trying to add something that's not going to be simple, okay? And the other thing is, if you don't this is from my wife, if you don't start small, it won't continue, okay? So pick one, pick one and try to set up that system, okay, for the week, okay? And that's number one. I want you to do that. I also want to give you some Elul-oriented ideas, two quick ones. And again, they can just be part of your rotation. You can make a rotation. So, for men, when the shofar blows, that's what mitzvah do you fulfill besides the minhag of hearing shofar? Does anyone know? A Torah commandment. Well, it can be. That's the purpose. You can achieve fear of Hashem. In other words, when the shofar blows and all you say to yourself, Rosh Hashanah is coming, the day of judgment is coming, and you feel some concern, you just finish your Hashem and go on to have tshuva. That would be amazing. But now for women, okay, so I was going to say that what's the other practice we do every day? LeDavid, right? Do most of you recite LeDavid? Yes? Okay. So there's two mitzvahs there. One is for women, even though you don't hear the shofar, when it says Hashem Ori, Hashem is my light, the Midrash says that alludes to Rosh Hashanah. So you can also go Rosh Hashanah. Or you can just say, why am I doing this? Because of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and you can fulfill yours Hashem. But also for all men and women, that Tehillim is about Devekus to Hashem. And that's a Torah commandment. It's a Torah commandment to cleave to Hashem. So, okay, those are the assignments, all right? And what we're going to do right now is I asked Mr. Ashburn to please come and give a little background about his son. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply kavanah mitzvahs for his Aliyas Neshama. So I'm going to have him speak first, and then we're going to do an exercise, and then we're done. Okay, Mr. Ashburn?
Should I stand or sit?
I think sit so you can see.
I want to thank Rabbi Wegbreit so much for his foundation and for his ideas. I want to thank Joseph Ober for helping us link up with this particular event and this series. And I think Rabbi Wegbreit's son also helped with the setup here. And thank you all for coming. I do believe that it is a big Elui of the Neshama of our son, that we're all here focused on Hashem, focused on the mitzvahs of Hashem, to learn Torah. Our son Yoni Ashburn, I don't know how many of you knew him. He was an amazing young man. And unfortunately, he passed away last second day of Rosh Hashanah. He was 19 years old, almost 20. And when I heard about what Rabbi Wegbreit was going to speak about, I went onto his website and I looked at one of the introductory videos, and I thought, wow, this is really so appropriate for our son Yoni, because Yoni was about Hashem. Yoni was about serving Hashem. Yoni was about knowing that everything that happened came from Hashem. That he was excited. His second name is Simcha. His name is Yonatan Simcha. Hashem gave us Simcha. And that's what he was about. He gave so much simcha to other people, and he loved doing it. He was a musician. He played the keyboard, and he would love whenever he had an opportunity to play for somebody else and to make them happy. He played at different simchas, and he was just so excited to have the opportunity to make other people happy, and he knew that was a mitzvah. And he knew that when things happened, it was because of Hashem. He would see a person walking down the street that needed help. Was a blind individual in our community. Yoni would look for him and see him, and he would go and help him go down the street. Other times he would miss the bus, and he would come home and tell me why it was siyata d'shmaya that he missed the bus, because that helped him, that he ended up at a certain place, or he went over to this place at that time in order to help somebody else, or to be where Hashem wanted him to be at the moment. So I think that a few things here that Rabbi Wegbreit is talking about, knowing that you're in Hashem's presence, knowing that Hashem is in control of everything, and being aware of that in everything that you do, I think is, Rabbi Wegbreit was talking about, you can learn Torah, and you can sing songs, and you can do all kind of things that are fun and enjoyable, but if you don't realize that it's for Hashem, you're missing so much. And that really is what Yoni was about. He knew that Hashem was with him wherever he was. from the beginning of his life to the end. He knew that Hashem was with him and that Hashem controlled everything. And to have the opportunity to be aware of that and to inculcate that idea in our lives and to use that every day, I think is just a huge blessing if we can all do that and try to to do mitzvos kavanah and to know that we're doing it for Hashem. We're in Hashem's presence. We're doing it because Hashem commanded us, and we want that relationship, which is the ultimate relationship why we're created. So I want to thank you again all for coming. Thank you all, Rabbi Wegbreit and everyone, for being here. And I hope that you'll be able to see either in person or online the remainder of the messages in this series, and that Hashem should help us all to come closer to Him. You know, I think it says that if a person turns towards Hashem brings him towards Him, and that's what we need to do. If we have that kavanah to turn to Hashem, Hashem is going to reward us and help us to do it. So I wish everybody a wonderful Shana Tova coming up, preparation for Rosh Hashanah, the year to come. Thank you all.
Beautiful. If everybody can just do one favor, and we'll record it. We'll see if it stays. But the Ashburns brought some food for a bracha, and we have a drink. So if you can please bring something and come back here, and let's try to create something to give him a very special Liyas Neshama by adding kavanahs to what we're doing. Okay, so if you'll please go get something and come right back, and we'll be done.
Doesn't matter which bracha you're bringing.
No. In fact, one is enough, but please help yourself. Okay, so we'll just take a minute and then we'll see how to maximize. We'll be right back.
Really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Want me to bring you something?
Yeah.
Yeah, bring you something?
I'm just setting, I filmed this, I'm setting it to my family, and here I'm coming in.
Okay. Okay, if everybody please come have a seat real quick.
Judging by what most people took, I think most people have kavanah to be healthy.
Then I'll take the cookies.
I took the chocolate.
Guess what?
It needed to be represented.
Very good. You're going to see that chocolate and cake and these things can also be a mitzvah. It's not the one to take care of our health, but it is a mitzvah. We'll see right now. Okay, so this is, let me explain how we'll do this. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, perfect. When you do something, I want to explain this idea of doing something for an Aliyas Neshama, okay? So first we need to realize, and I was taught very early on, very important halachic point. The main reason we do any mitzvah is because it's a mitzvah, right? Because Hashem commanded us, right? So when you want to, let's say a tehillim for a refuah shlema someone, you should have in mind, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of reciting tehillim, doing hesed, right? And for the refuah shlema, okay? So right now, we're going to fulfill the mitzvah of making blessings and eating the food. Well, see, the eating can be a mitzvah too, okay? But just always remember, when you're doing things for Ilya Nishmas, you should first say, I'm doing this, l'kayim mitzvah spori, to fulfill the commandment of my Creator, okay? So that's number one. So everybody should right now have in mind that I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of making blessings, and we're going to add a little kavanahs to it, to fulfill the mitzvah of my Borei, of my Creator. And for everybody have this in mind, the Ilya Nishmas of Yonasan Simcha ben Daniel. Okay, so there. Now, but let's give him a further. What mitzvah is giving an Elias Neshama? What mitzvah is that? Hesed. You're doing Hesed Shel Emes, because the person can't respond. It's high-level Hesed. Is Hesed a rabbinic commandment or Torah? Torah commandment. 2 commandments. Whenever you do Hesed, you're doing Ahavtarecha Kamocha. Have all this in mind as I speak. Ahavtarecha Kamocha and Halachta V'drachav, emulating Hashem's ways of kindness and goodness. Okay? So, right? So we're doing that Ilya Nishmas for Yonasan Simcha. Okay? So you had kavanah for those mitzvahs. Now, I want to show you. Now, this is part of, don't run for the hills when you see how much is going here. But I want to kind of point out that once you go into the world of mitzvahs, you're not going to believe how enormous it is, okay? You know, someone gave a great metaphor, is when you eat food, you don't know what's going on down there. But was a physiologist and a biochemist, I think? It's incredible, all the things that are taking place. The same thing, you're in an atmosphere filled with mitzvahs, okay? So here, let me show you this. And we're not going to try to do all these right now, but these are 5 mitzvahs in the blessing Shehakol, or Mazonos, okay? Okay, no, I'm not going to do a whole thing, but, you know, for example, there's a mitzvah to thank Hashem for his kindness. When you're aware you're in Hashem's presence, that's Anochi, the first commandment, right? When you're careful with Hashem's name, Hashem Elokeinu, that's your Hashem, right? When you talk about him being king of the universe or the universes, that's Yeris Aromamus, okay? And again, when you say Shekol Ni'evro, in a single, you got 5 commandments. I think they're all Torah commandments. You see the world that's here? Okay, now, I don't expect you to master that immediately, okay? But let's do a blessing right now. Whatever you prefer, the mazonos. Like, let's start with just, first of all, we have in mind the mitzvah to make a blessing before eating. That's Torah.
Recorded.
Okay, you're going to say atah, and so that means you're Hashem's presence. So that's Anochi. It's several mitzvahs, but I'm controlling myself. Okay, ready? So let's just aim for that you're going to say Baruch atah, since you're speaking to Hashem in His presence, and have in mind the mitzvah of the first commandment of Amun Hashem. Okay, so that and make your bracha. Okay, everybody, do that first part. Now, most people think the spirituality is done, and now we get to eat. Wrong. Let me show you all the mitzvahs in eating. Now, this was designed for healthy, but don't worry. As I said, there's for non-healthy too. These are mitzvahs in a glass of water. When you drink a glass of water, see if they can see that. There we go. Okay, let me see. Okay, so anyhow, what do we have here? Okay, this is just an overview. Okay, we have to start small in order to continue. But if it's healthy, okay, then it's nishmartem ma'od l'nafshesekim, taking care of your health. Okay, next, I'll go this way. Anything you eat and drink, if you dedicate it to that, my purpose in eating and drinking is to have strength to serve Hashem, something that I know he would have done and does. So that's b'kol darchecha de'eyu. In all your ways, know Hashem. Everything you realize your sleep. I don't know how much sleep you get. If you get enough, it's down here, Nishmar. If you don't, but your sleep can either be a mitzvah or sleep. Okay? But anyhow, so then, ready? Also, you can fulfill, and especially as you, and this one is with cake included, is loving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Meaning, because your Yetzer Hara, it's not as bad as it sounds, also means your physicality. So when you dedicate, again, your physicality, you can be expressing love of Hashem. Hashem, everything I do is for you. You just got loving Hashem, even with your Yetzer Hara. Okay? Next. Okay, right. This is take note of this in terms of pleasurable foods, pleasurable activities. It says in Mishlei, Gomel l'nafsho ish chesed. One who bestows to himself is a kind person. Okay? So they learn from that whenever you treat your body like lovingly and kindly, like you would a child, like your neshama is taking care of your body, you fulfill that mitzvah. Okay? And then finally, this is for a glass of water. If you have healthy foods, you could be indulging. You could be having an XL or pizza. So if you have the healthy choice over the pizza, kadoshim to you, according to Ramban, you're separating from which is permitted to you to be a holy person. Okay, so just have a bite right now, and since I think. Well, the people who had the water should have in mind Nishmartem, and if you're having cake or something, just have in mind doing kindness to yourself and loving Hashem with physicality. Okay, we're done.
Shama shir shir